But I remember Papa Daniel was a house over in Bradish Creek. You know, they had like it's a square house with 4 rooms. But the boards were straight up and down, and on those boards they would actually glue newspaper on the inside so to keep the air out.
Yeah.
But Papa Daniel lived in it wasn't a camp house, was it?
Papa Daniel, he lived on Bradish Creek.
Yeah,
he lived in one of those houses, but he just had a little plot of ground, you know, and he raised corn. Well, we never knew anything about what Papa Daniel was involved in. Dad would never talk about it because, you know, Dad's 2 brothers were shot and killed in gun battles over women. One of them was actually bushwhacked and one guy was in prison for that one. But Daddy always told me that the only thing that saved him was Mother.
Yeah.
And they never did want Daddy to have anything to do with Mother. But Mother's a Christian, and that turned it around. But Grandpa Daniel, he had a little plot of corn, and his wife was moonshine. And then right after the war, like 1946 and 47, her grandmother had a child out of wedlock, and so he went to service, and he had his divorce before he went, but he had his thumb shot off in World War II. Uncle Bill, you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And so Uncle Brett lived close to him, but Uncle Brett hated Uncle Bill because he was actually Grandma Daniel thought more of him than anybody. So he sent a couple first cousins back to Uncle Bill to kill him, and they had a hole in the floor, and that's where they dropped their moonshine. And I'm sure now I know that now, but didn't know that then. And so my grandma Daniel, she put him underneath the floor with a high-powered rifle, and he just come out of service. So he killed one of them in self-defense. Then Papa Daniel, if you plowed the mule or horse, which that's what we plowed with, if you were going along, and actually a lot of rocks and stumps and stuff, and so Papa was going along that horse, and somehow it kicked, they call it kicking. The horse would, when it hit this and stopped the horse would runs forward and then pop back, and so would the plow. So it hit Papa on the chest, and then Dad moved him out of that place over in the back of the old store with the head there.
Yeah, but Mama lived over in Bradish Creek. And they had, when you went into their little house, they had a pretty good sized piece of property there.
Yeah.
You went down the hill, across the creek, and there was an old log house up there. And it had, I think there were two rooms. Then it had a bay area, or an open area, and then they had the kitchen.
Well, that was kind of how typical,
Yeah.
of how they did it, typical burning.
So,
Yeah.
Mama would get up in the morning and go in and fire up because most of them stayed in the kitchen back then, and she'd fire up the fire. So Papa, or Mama went in, and there was a copper in, and she was getting ready to build a fire, and it bit her.
Grandma Daniel?
Yeah. So Papa had seen a vision. See, Papa was a bootlegging preacher. The way he made his money, he rode a black horse, which my dad did the same thing. He wore a big long trench coat, and he'd go preach, and he'd put that moonshine in his coat and sell it to make money to go back home and feed his family. So he was a bootlegging preacher. So Mama, in a vision, Papa seen this vision how to control snake bites and how to heal consumption. Back then that was TB, consumption. So he goes in and Mama has got this snake bite, so he takes gunpowder. And he flashes it 3 times on that burn, and it didn't swell.
You know that bike.
On that bite, and it didn't swell. But he never did write down how to heal TB. But he knew how to do that. But